Welcome back everyone. Atithi guest line by line explanation video number 2. Do check the pinned comment section for all important video links related to your syllabus. In today's session, we are going to start from Unit 4, page number 131. In the last session, we were introduced to characters like Tarapoto, the protagonist of the story, Motilal Babu the Zamindar, his wife Annapurna and their daughter Chu Shashi. And we also saw the characteristic traits of Tarapodo's personality. Tarapoto is a symbol of freedom, innocence and detachment in the story. Let's begin now. Tarapoto took no notice of Nandigram when they passed it. He was on his way to Nandigram. He met Motilal Babu and he requested Motilal Babu to drop him at Nandigram. What was his purpose of visit? Why was he going to Nandigram? Remember, in the beginning of the story, we read Tarapoto had heard that the zamindars of Nandigram had found on a lavish scale an amateur jatra group, and Tarapoto tied up his bundle and he headed towards Nandigram, and he met Motilal Babu on his way. So this time, when he was travelling with Motilal Babu, he took no notice of Nandigram. He did not stop at Nandigram. They simply passed the place. The large boat, sometimes with its sails up, sometimes stowed, proceeded slowly on the boat journey, down rivers and tributaries, and the days of the passengers too flowed with a soft and easy pace, just as the water of the rivers and the tributaries flowed gently and smoothly. The days of the passengers too passed by with a soft and easy pace through the peace and beauty of the scene, the picturesque landscape. They passed through picturesque landscape, the scene, the journey by boat. No one was in any kind of hurry. They enjoyed themselves. The boat ride, the boat journey was enjoyable and pleasurable. Long afternoons were spent bathing and eating, and as soon as dusk fell, the boat was moored at a village ghat by trees buzzing with crickets and aglow with fireflies. Again, description of nature as soon as dusk fell. After about 10 days of this, the boat arrived at Katalia, their destination. Ponies and a palanquin were sent from the house to receive the zamindar. Motilal Babu received a ceremonial welcome. A guard of honor with bamboo lathis fired rounds of blanks, raucously in a loud way, echoed by the village crows. So the ceremonial welcome received by the zamindar. He was an influential person and he received a very good welcome. Meanwhile, Tarapoto slipped off the boat and quickly looked round the village. Tarapoto, we all know by now, was not interested in all this, in the ceremonial welcome. He was interested in the exquisite beauty of nature. Calling one villager Dada, another Khudo, another Didi and another Masi, he established friendly relations with everyone in a couple of hours. He could mix freely and easily with everyone. Because he had no normal ties, he could get to know people with amazing ease and speed, and within a few days he had won all hearts. He mixed with everyone on equal terms. He was unconventional, very important, yet able to adapt to any situation or work. He did not complain much. He was a carefree soul. He could adjust and he could adapt to any situation or work. He did not have any ego as such, and he did not discriminate also. Tarapoto, as soon as he reaches Katalia, surveys the village and is spellbound by its exquisite beauty. He is able to establish friendly relations with everyone in the village. He addresses them as Kuro, Didi, Mashi, brother or uncle or elder sister or aunt. A deep feeling of identification, sympathy and affection for human beings in general characterizes our Tarapoto, and his relations apparently display more warmth. He can be and is friendly with anyone regardless of caste, class or age. And he has a very easygoing temperament, and he has this unique ability to win over the hearts of many people. With boys, he was a boy. He was just like any other boy, yet somehow separate and special, his individualism. With older people, he was not a boy, yet not too precocious either. Precocious, mature. With herders, he was a herder, yet also a Brahmin, belonging to a higher section of the society, higher class of the higher social class. He joined in with things as if used to them all his life. He did not have any problem. He was uncomplaining. He would be chatting in the sweet shop. The sweet maker would say, "Could you mind the shop for a while? I shan't be long." Cool as a cucumber. Cool as a cucumber. Now this is an example of simile. Tarapoto sat there keeping the flies off the sweetmeats with a leaf. He could even make sweets himself, knew something of weaving, and was not completely ignorant of how to turn a potter's wheel. Since Tarapoto went to different places, mixed with different kinds of people, acquired a lot of experiences, he was very useful. He learnt a lot of things. Tarapoto reigned over the whole village. Just like a king, Tarapoto reigned over the whole village. He loved everyone and everyone also loved him. There was just one girl whose hatred he simply could not overcome. But he could not overcome the hatred of Chu Shashi. He won the hearts of everyone in the village except Chu Shashi, who was overpowered by jealousy and envy, possessiveness as well. Perhaps it was because this girl so fiercely wished him to leave that he stayed on so long. Chu Shashi did not like having Tarapoto around her. But Chu Shashi now proved how hard it is to fathom, to understand even a juvenile female mind. Juvenile, immature, childish female mind. And she was an enigma, a puzzle. Babun Thakurun's daughter Sonamuni had been widowed at the age of 5. She was Charu's playmate. She had been ill for a while and had not been able to go out to see her friend. When she recovered, she came to see her again. Another character, Sonamuni, Chu Shashi's friend. A rift between them came about for almost no reason. They were no longer close. Chu Shashi had been speaking at length about Tarapoto. She was so preoccupied with Tarapoto. Although she did not like Tarapoto, she was always speaking about Tarapoto. She hoped by saying what a precious asset he was to astonish and intrigue her friend. Chu Shashi was boastful. She was showing off Tarapoto as a precious asset of her family, just to astonish her and intrigue her friend. What is the meaning of intrigue? Fascinate her friend. But when she discovered he was known to Sonamuni, that he called Babun Thakurun Mashi and that Sonamuni called him Dada, when she heard that he not only treated mother and daughter to kirtan tunes on his flute, but had at Sonamuni's request made her a bamboo flute, that he had picked her fruits from high branches and flowers from thorny ones, when she heard all this, darts of fire stabbed her. This is an example of metaphor, darts of fire. She was burning inwardly with jealousy and envy. So, a characteristic trait, as we know, of Chu Shashi. Sonamuni was Chu Shashi's childhood friend. Charu refrains to tolerate Tarapodo's concern for Shonamuni. Her initial dislike towards Tarapoto gradually assumes the hue, the color of love and admiration, and Charu wishes to be the sole claimant of Tarapodo's attention and admiration. As a result of this, she engages herself into a battle with Shonamuni for no reason and then gets into Tarapodo's room and stamps on his flute and breaks it. We will soon see the consequence of her burning jealousy and envy. She had thought of Tarapoto as their Tarapoto, a sense of belongingness, and it is this sense of belongingness that Tarapoto disliked. Guarded closely so that ordinary people might glimpse him yet never be able to grasp him. Possessiveness of Chu Shashi. They would admire his beauty and talents from a distance, and Chu Shashi's family would gain glory thereby. They would boast of having such a person as a precious asset in their family. Why should Shonamuni have such easy contact with this singular, divinely favored Brahmin boy? He was singular, he was divinely favored, and he was a Brahmin boy. And Shonamuni, according to Chu Shashi, could not have such an easy access to this boy. If Charu's family had not taken him in, had not looked after him so, how would Shonamuni ever have seen him? Shonamuni, Dada, indeed, she burned all over at the thought, burned with jealousy and envy. Why was the Charu who had tried to strike the boy down with arrows of hatred so anxious to claim sole rights over him? Understand this who will. So this is really a puzzle, and if anybody can solve it, he or she may do so. Rabindranath Tagore leaves this to the imagination, to the understanding and interpretation of the readers. Indeed, juvenile female mind is a puzzle. Later that day, Charu had a serious disagreement with Shonamuni over another trivial matter, insignificant. She marched into Tarapoto's room, found his beloved flute, and callously jumped and stamped on it. She was still doing so when Tarapoto came in. Tarapoto saw this. He was amazed by the image of destruction that the girl presented. Burning with jealousy and envy, she was there destroying his lovely flute, his beloved flute. So this is the battle with Shonamuni. Tarapoto still bears this, and he does not scold her. He possesses the attribute of accepting himself as well as the shortcomings of others uncomplainingly. He is seen to take the weaknesses and frailties and evils of human nature in the same unquestioning spirit with which one accepts the characteristics of nature. Charu, why are you smashing my flute? He asked. I want to smash it. I am going to smash it, shouted Charu with red eyes and flushed face. She was very angry and stamping unnecessarily on the already smashed flute, venting out her anger and frustration. She burst into loud sobs and ran from the room. Tarapoto picked up the pieces, turned them this way and that, but it was useless. It was already broken. To wreak destruction on his old innocent flute was so absurd that he burst out laughing. The reaction of Tarapoto. Chu Shashi intrigued him more every day. He was unable to understand her. He was also intrigued by the English illustrated books in Motilal Babu's library. His quest for knowledge, the library, offered him immense scope for learning new things. Tarapoto had considerable knowledge of the world, but he He could not enter the world of these pictures at all. He tried to do so in his imagination but found no satisfaction in this. Seeing his interest in these books, Motilal said one day, "Would you like to learn English?" So, although he had a thirst for knowledge, he did not know English. Therefore, he could just see the pictures and imagine them. He could not read them because he did not know English. "You will understand these pictures then. I would like to learn it," he replied at once. And since he wanted to learn new things, he agreed when Motilal Babu offered to teach him English. Motilal Babu happily engaged the headmaster of the village secondary school, Ram Ratan Babu, to teach the boy English each evening. So, name of the headmaster, Ram Ratan Babu. Tarapoto set about learning English with great concentration and retention. It released him into a hitherto inaccessible realm, unconnected with his former world. This was a new world of new possibilities. The local people saw no more of him. He was so interested, he was so busy in learning English that the local people did not see him often. At dusk, when he went to the empty riverside to pace swiftly up and down, reciting his lessons, his boyish followers, mournfully watched from a distance. They dared not disturb his studies. He was always studying, and his followers, the other boys, could not approach him easily because they did not want to disturb his studies. Charu too did not see much of him now. Formerly, Tarapoto ate in the women's quarters under Annapurna's loving gaze. But because this could take a long time, he asked Motilal Babu to arrange for him to eat outside them. Annapurna was hurt by this and objected, but Motilal was so pleased by Tarapoto's keenness to learn that he agreed to the new arrangement. So, to quench Tarapoto's thirst for knowledge, Motilal Babu made arrangements for his tuition in English, and Tarapoto is seen to be engrossed in his academic endeavor, and he derives sheer joy from exploring the unknown. Charu now insisted that she too wanted to learn English. Jealous? At first, her parents were amused by their wayward daughter's new idea, lovingly laughed at it, but its absurdity, weirdness, was soon washed away by tears. Doting parents that they were forced to give in, and she started to study alongside Tarapoto with the same tutor, Ram Ratan Babu. Study, however, was alien to her restless nature. She was not at all interested in studies. She learnt nothing herself. What did she do? She merely disturbed Tarapoto while he was studying. She merely disrupted Tarapoto's learning. She fell far behind. She was lagging behind in studies. Couldn't learn anything by heart, but couldn't bear to be behind. Jealous again. If Tarapoto overtook her and moved on to a new lesson, she was furious and burst into tears. When he finished an old book and bought a new one, she had to buy the new book too. In his spare time, he would sit in his room learning and writing his lessons. The jealous girl could not stand this also, could not tolerate this also. She would secretly come and pour ink on his exercise book, steal his pen, even tear from the book the passage he had been set to learn. Tarapoto bore most of this with amusement. If she went too far, he slapped her, but he was quite unable to control her. Uncontrollable, restless spirit of Chu Shashi. A chance occurrence saved him. One day, truly annoyed, he tore up his ink-spilled exercise book and sat gloomily. Charu came to the door and prepared herself for a beating, but nothing happened. Tarapoto went on sitting in silence. He did not react. The girl went in and out of the room trying to attract Tarapodo's attention towards her, but Tarapoto went on sitting in silence. Several times she came so close that Tarapoto could, if he had wished, easily have thwacked her on the back. So she tried really hard to draw his attention towards her, but he did not do that and remained solemn, serious. The girl was in a quandary. Now, what is the meaning of quandary? She was in a dilemma. How to ask for forgiveness was something she had never learned, yet she was extremely anxious for forgiveness. Finally, seeing no other way, she took a piece of the torn exercise book, sat down next to Tarapoto and wrote in large round letters, "I will never pour ink on your exercise book again." So, this is very interesting. For the first time, she was asking for forgiveness and Tarapoto did not pay any attention to her. She was unable to draw his attention towards her, and finally she had to give in. At this, Tarapoto could not contain himself anymore and he burst out laughing. The girl dashed from the room, overcome with shame and anger. Only if she had been able to expunge from all time the paper on which she had humbled herself, on which she had begged for forgiveness, would her fury have been eased. Fury, anger. During this period, Shonamuni had once or twice, with her heart in her mouth, lurked outside the lesson room. She was close to her friend Chu Shashi in most matters, but with regard to Tarapoto, she feared and distrusted her. At moments when Charu was in the women's quarters, she would stand timidly outside Tarapoto's door. He would look up from his book and say tenderly, softly, "What is it? Shona, what's up? How is Masi?" Shonamuni would say, "You haven't been to see us for a long time. Mother wishes you would sometime. She has backache, so she can't come to you." Charu would perhaps now appear. Shonamuni was flustered. What is the meaning of flustered? Quickly write down. Made somebody feel nervous and confused. So, she felt like a thief. Simile. Charu would scowl and shriek at her. Charu did not like this at all, and she would scowl, make an angry expression. "Well, Shona, coming to disturb our studies, I'll tell my father," as if she herself was Tarapoto's guardian, whose sole object was to watch him day and night in case his studies were disturbed. But God was not unaware of what her actual motive was in coming to Tarapoto's room at this odd time, and Tarapoto also knew it well. Poor Shonamuni fumbled, made awkward gestures for false explanations when Charu venomously called her a liar, accused Shonamuni of lying. She withdrew, sick at heart, sad, defeated. The kindly Tarapoto would call her and say, "Shona, I will come to your house this evening." Charu hissed back like a snake. Again, simile. "How can you go? What about your lessons? I'll tell the teacher." Undaunted by Charu's threat, Tarapoto spent a couple of evenings at Bamun Thakurun's house. On the third day, Charu, without further warning, quietly bolted his door and fetching the padlock from her mother's spice box, locked him in. So what did she do? She locked Tarapoto in. She was so jealous of Tarapoto meeting Shonamuni, going to Shonamuni's house. She kept him prisoner for the whole evening, only opening the door when it was time to eat. Tarapoto was angrily silent and was about to go out without eating. Then the passionate, overwrought girl clasped her hands and cried out repeatedly, "I promise you, cross my heart, that I won't do it again. Please, I beg you, eat before you go." When even this had no effect, she began to wail and he was forced to turn back and eat. So she was possessive, and again, when Tarapoto did not pay her much attention, she used to beg forgiveness as well. And therefore, Chu Shashi is described as a puzzle, as an enigma. Almost 2 years passed like this. By this time, Chu Shashi reaches almost 11 years of age. Tarapoto had never moved himself to anyone for so long. He had never stayed with anyone for so long. Maybe his studies had a hold on him, or maybe he was changing as he grew up. He was a wanderer, but this time he was there with Motilal Babu for a long period of time, almost 2 years. And a stable existence in a comfortable house had more appeal than before. Maybe the beauty of his study companion Chu Shashi, even if she had been constantly bad-tempered, was exerting an unconscious influence. Maybe the family, maybe the comfort, the security, the assurance of the family of Motilal Babu's household, or maybe the beauty of Chu Shashi kept Tarapoto tied to this place for almost 2 years. Meanwhile, Charu had reached the age of 11. Motilal Babu had sought out 2 or 3 good marriage offers. Now that she had reached marriageable age. Now here, try to understand one thing. The social context back then was different from the social context of modern times. During those times, girls who reached the age of 11 had to be married. As a consequence of this, Motilal Babu also placed a ban on English books and outside visits. She kicked up a terrible fuss at these new restrictions. What were the new restrictions? Ban on English books, meaning she could not study with Tarapoto anymore, and a ban on outside visits as well. Her mobility was also restricted. She had to stay indoors. Then one day, Annapurna called Motilal and said, "Why search outside for a groom? Tarapoto would make a fine husband and your daughter likes him." Annapurna liked Tarapoto very much. Therefore, she proposed Motilal that Tarapoto could be the possible groom for Chu Shashi. Motilal Babu was astonished at this suggestion. "That's impossible," he said. "We don't know anything about his family." A cautious father. Yes, this is true. They did not know anything about Tarapoto's background. "She is my only daughter. I want to marry her well. Some people came from the Zamindar's house at Raidanga to look at the girl. Efforts were made to dress Charu up. She shut herself in her room and refused to come out. Motilal Babu begged and rebuked her from outside, but without result. Finally, he had to lie to the delegation to the group from Raidanga. His daughter had suddenly fallen ill and could not be seen today. They assumed from this lame excuse that the girl had some kind of defect. Motilal Babu started to reflect that Tarapoto was indeed good to look at. Good in every outward aspect. He could keep him at home, so his only daughter would not have to go to someone else's house. Tarapoto could be a potential ghar jamai. He realized that his truculent daughter's foibles, which he and his wife could smile at, would not be received so well by in-laws. He knew that Chu Shashi was a nagging girl. She was immature. She was stubborn. She was obstinate, truculent, aggressively defiant, and she had a lot of weaknesses, and perhaps her in-laws would not tolerate all this, all these things, all these shortcomings. So it was better if Tarapoto married Chu Shashi. By this, Tarapoto would live with them in their house, and Chu Shashi too would not face any difficulty after marriage. A doting father. After lengthy discussion, Motilal and Annapurna sent a man to Tarapoto's village to find out about his family. Initially, Motilal Babu was surprised and was reluctant to consider Tarapoto as the bridegroom of their only daughter on the ground that they did not know anything about his family background. Finally, Motilal Babu and Annapurna together sent a messenger to Tarapodo's village to find out about his ancestry. They came to know that the family was poor and it belonged to high caste. So, Motilal Babu sent a formal proposal to Tarapodo's mother and elder brother. They were overjoyed at the proposal and accepted it at once. The information came that it was poor but high caste. Motilal Babu then sent a marriage proposal to the boy's mother and brothers. They were well pleased and agreed to it at once. Back at Katalia, Motilal Babu and Annapurna discussed the day and hour of the wedding. Everything was fixed, but the naturally cautious Motilal kept the whole matter secret. Charu, though, could not be restricted. She sometimes burst into Tarapodo's room like a cavalry charge. She was restless and she burst into the room like a cavalry charge. Again, a simile, disturbing his studies with crossness, anger, eagerness or scorn. Sometimes, detached and independent though he was, he felt a strange stirring in his heart at this, a sort of electrical impulse. Perhaps Tarapoto too was developing soft feelings for Chu Shashi. Till now, he had floated lightly and serenely without impediment on time's stream. He was carefree. He was a happy-go-lucky person. Sometimes now he was snared by strange, distracting daydreams. He would leave his studies and go into Motilal Babu's library and flick through the pages of the illustrated books. The imaginary world which he mixed with these pictures was much changed, much more highly colored than before. He could not laugh at Charu's strange behavior quite as he had done in the past. When she was bad, he never thought of beating her now. This deep change, this powerful feeling of attraction was like a new dream. So this was a new experience for Tarapoto. He was carefree, but now he was dreaming of Chu Shashi. He was attracted to Chu Shashi. Motilal Babu fixed the wedding for the month of Shravan and sent word to Tarapoto's mother and brothers, but he did not inform Tarapoto himself. He told his Mokhtar in Calcutta to hire a trumpet and drum band, and he ordered everything else that would be needed for the wedding. Meanwhile, at Kurulkata, on the Nag family estate, a famous chariot festival was due to be held. One moonlit evening, Tarapoto went to the ghat and saw on the swift flood tide boats with merry-go-rounds and jatra troops and cargo boats rapidly making for the fair. So, a fair was about to be held. An orchestra from Calcutta was practicing loudly as it passed. The Jatra troupe was singing to violin accompaniment, shouting out the beats. Boatmen from lands to the west split the sky with cymbals and thudding drums. Such excitement! Then clouds from the east covered the moon with their huge black sails. An east wind blew sharply. Cloud after cloud rolled by. The river gushed and swelled. Darkness thickened in the swaying riverside trees. Frogs croaked. Crickets rasped like wood saws. To Tarapoto, the whole world seemed like a chariot festival. Simile. Wheels turning, flags flying, earth trembling, clouds swirling, wind rushing, river flowing, boats sailing, songs rising, onomatopoeia. The excitement in the environment. There were rumbles of thunder, slashes of lightning in the sky. The smell of torrential rain approached from the dark distance. But Katalia village next to the river ignored all this. Life was easy and smooth at Katalia, but outside, the world was bubbling with excitement. She shut her doors, turned out her lamps and went to sleep. The following morning, Tarapoto's mother and brothers arrived at Katalia. And that same morning, 3 large boats from Calcutta, laden with things for the wedding, moored at the Zamindar's ghat. And very early that same morning, Shonamuni brought some mango juice preserved in paper and some pickle wrapped in a leaf and timidly stood outside Tarapodo's room. But Tarapodo was not to be seen. He was nowhere. In a cloudy monsoon night, before love and emotional ties could encircle him completely. After marriage, this Brahmin boy, thief of all hearts in the village, had returned to the unconstraining, unemotional arms of his mother earth. Tarapodo's wanderlust, his life as a vagabond, drew him away from Katalia. To Tarapoto, the whole world seemed like a chariot festival, and Katalia village in the riverbed was oblivious to this eternal ceremony of motion. The village just shut her doors, turned out her lamps and faded into the spell of slumber. To Tarapoto, this kind of life was not appealing, and the next morning Tarapoto was nowhere to be seen. He had once again lost himself into the fathomless, unexplored, unknown world, leaving behind the shackles of certainty and secure bond of relationships. Once again, Tarapoto became one and unified with nature. He apparently moves beyond the mundane shackles of everyday life. He unleashes himself from the bindings of relationships and fades into the realm of oblivion, proving that Tara was just an Atithi, a guest who was here to stay for just a few days, not forever. Thus, this is a justification of the title. Through Tarapoto, Tagore has portrayed an ideal child of nature. Tarapoto in Atithi easily becomes the object of strong affection for anybody coming in contact with him, but he slips away from the bonds that people try to bind him with. Tarapoto is able to live fully in the moment. Continually experiencing a sense of inner freedom, he is out and out, endowed with creativity, exuberance, and invites challenges in life whenever he feels it becoming mundane. So dear students, this is the end of today's session, line by line explanation, and we will be solving questions and answers as well.